Hello, my name is Lynda Haddock, and this is my novel. It's called Ellen Lives On. The novel is about parental suicide. When 15-year-old Ellen arrives home from school one day, she discovers that her mother has hanged herself. She is subsequently put into foster care with an aunt where she's very unhappy, and she gets into trouble at school and runs away to London to be with her grandfather. There she meets some young women who are campaigning for their rights, and she gains strange friendship and sustenance from their comradeship and starts to put her life together and discover who she really is. The novel came partly from my own experience of family suicide, which isn't explored very much in young adult literature, and particularly suicide, while it's discussed publicly, the impact on survivors isn't explored quite so often or so deeply, and I thought it would be useful to do that. Also, the second influence was the young people I've worked with. I worked throughout my career with a lot of troubled and stressed young people who dealt with difficult things in their life, and I was aware that literature, that reading about other people's experience could bring comfort. So that was a motivation. And then the third main motivation was an interest in exploring the contrast between the women's movement in the 1970s and what's happening now. So there's been lots of progress for women, but there's still, a gender pay gap. We've had the Me Too movement, so there's still a lot to do. And I was interested in just reflecting on the origins of some of that action. The character of Ellen developed as I wrote. She came to life as I was writing about her. I was influenced, I think, partly by, I've worked with lots of young women who have talked about how they often felt they had to be very quiet and retreat into silence, and that's something that Ellen did, so I learnt from that. But I also wanted to trace her growing strengths throughout the novel. We know that having just one person who cares about you if you're a troubled young person can make a huge difference, and Ellen had her grandfather, and that relationship gave her strength. She had a commitment and awareness of social justice, which she'd got from her mother, and she was very aware of the sexism at her aunt's house, where she was placed in foster care, where the boys were treated very favourably and she was expected to wait on them. And her growing awareness of these gave her courage. She wrote a letter to the local paper supporting comprehensive education, which got her into trouble. And she gained a lot of strength from the comradeship of the young women that she met who were campaigning for their rights. And all of that gave her strength. So what I was interested in was how her character developed throughout the novel and how she gained in confidence. The idea for Ellen Lives On emerged slowly at odd times of the day, when I was walking around the park, when I was in the queue at the supermarket, when I was driving somewhere. And those ideas, just went round and round and round until I felt ready to sketch out a plot and a structure. And I worked on that for quite a long time. I'm not one of those writers who can just write the first paragraph and think, I'll see what happens, just keep writing. I like to know what's going to happen. So I sketched it out very carefully. And then once I'd got that plot in place, I wrote at least 500 words a day, come what may. Sometimes it was more, sometimes they weren't very good, but they could be revised. And I kept on doing that until I'd got to the end of the novel. And then I showed it to family and friends who made lots of helpful comments and started the revising process. Yes, I am planning to write another novel, which will also be for young people, but it's very much in the early thinking stage. So I've got a brief idea of a plot and a character, but it hasn't emerged yet. And there will be some research to do. I'm thinking of writing about a young person in care, and I'll need to do more reading before I actually start writing. So that's hovering in the back of my mind just now.